Jason Blevins, 97.3 ESPN.com, at JBlevinsNBA. He joins us now with a closer look at some of the questions that have emerged in these two games and what we saw last night. And, Jay, do you agree that they looked more coherent in the scrimmage games than they have these first two seeding games?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that just the level of competition does go up pretty significantly when it matters. And then there's just a matchup thing. I think Indiana is always a tough matchup for them. We talked about that yesterday. And then you've got a DeMar DeRozan who loves to score in exactly the spot where the Sixers are willing to let you try to score from, which is that soft middle 16 to 18 foot range in mid-range. And when you got a guy that's really comfortable in there and can do it efficiently, they're going to put up points against this team because it's just not how they're designed.
Yeah, and Brett said it last night, your defense in the fourth quarter, it stinks. And, obviously they're playing against two teams who are not offensive juggernauts there. But was that the 130, 127, is that the biggest concern getting into these playoffs that you've seen so far? Is there something else?
Well, I think the number one concern is, why are teams scoring 40-plus in fourth quarters against you? That should concern absolutely everyone. It should concern everyone on that team. It should concern fans. Because to me, what that says is that the other teams are spending those first few quarters sort of figuring out what the Sixers are trying to do, and then they're getting very comfortable at the end of the game. And they're just getting way too comfortable. And confidence and comfort is the whole thing when it comes to basketball. So you just can't let people get comfortable. Otherwise, they will earn their millions of dollars on the reputation of putting up big numbers against you.
What is wrong with Ben Simmons right now? I mean, he offensively yesterday was a poor performance. At halftime, he was 2 of 4 from the field. He fouled out of the game. Defensively, he's all over the place, and he was all over the place against T.J. Warren as well on that in that Indiana Pacers game. So what is happening with Ben? We all know that this team can't go anywhere if he's not going to be able to be the Ben Simmons we need him to be.
Yeah, I wish I had the answer to that question. I don't. We have gotten zero indication that his back is bothering him again. Early foul trouble is going to make a good defender into a mediocre defender. It's just one of those things that will happen. And I don't have the answer. I wish I did. We have not gotten anything to indicate that he's not feeling 100% physically. So I think the next game we will really need to watch and see, where's his head at? Is he in the game? Is he confident? Is he aggressive? I mean, everybody says, aggressive Ben is the good Ben, and passive Ben really does not help as much. So I think we're going to have to see over the next couple of games. If this continues 2 more games, I think everybody should be concerned.
All right, Jay Blevins with us here. Jason Blevins covered the Sixers. A lot of people wondering, why so much Neto and Burks? So I know we talked about it yesterday a little bit, but we saw it more last night again where Neto was getting, fourth quarter minutes. What is the hypothesis behind why Neto is getting some more minutes than a guy like Burks who can score? And obviously they did, scoring last night, the Sixers put out, 132, so scoring not a big issue for them. So why more Neto than Burks?
Yeah, actually, last night I saw the raging Twitter debate about this, and it really does bother people to see Neto on the floor and Burks on the bench. So I actually spent this morning writing about this exact topic, which is kind of silly, but I saw that people really, really fundamentally don't like this. So I wrote on the Painted Lines .com this morning for about 4 hours, going into really a breakdown of the eye test versus the numbers, and it really comes down to the fact that and I think I mentioned this yesterday, when the Sixers believe in the game plan that they have going into the game, they trust Neto to execute that game plan. When they feel like nothing is working and they need to get a shot in the arm and they are willing to put the ball in someone's hands, let them freelance a bit, and try to be a spark plug, that's when you'll see Alec Burks. So it's a good indicator of how confident they are in what they expected to see in the game, whether they're seeing what they expected or not. But I went into a couple of numbers because I think that the popular opinion is that Alec Burks is a better offensive player, and that really doesn't bear itself out in the numbers. Now, he is a better volume scorer. He does score more per 100 possessions, but his offensive rating is basically equal to Neto, which means his team essentially scores the same amount while he's in the game as Neto's does. They're 105, 104, both below NBA average as net offensive players. And Burks, despite having a 6'10" wingspan and being a bigger player, actually has a worse career defensive rating. So he's a worse net rated player for his career than Neto. And here's the interesting one for me, which is from an efficiency standpoint, his effective field goal percentage, even though he gets to the free throw line more often, is significantly below NBA average. So while he's the kind of guy that looks like he's a gifted scorer because he takes sort of those pull-up mid-range jumpers, he looks and feels like the kind of player that we've all played against in gyms that have torched us. He's an effective field goal percentage of 48%, and league average is 52%. And Neto is actually 53%, so just a hair over league average as a scorer from an efficiency standpoint. So a couple of those things really undermine the reputation and the eye test that Burks is the better player. He may be the better one-on-one offensive player, but for his career, he takes and needs 5 more shots per game than Neto does. And he's less efficient at it. He's got a worse field goal percentage. His field goal percentage for his career is 42%. It's just not very good. So when you look at those things, and then when you think about it in the context of we're talking about who our second/third string point guard should be, Burks has a assist to turnover ratio of his career for his career of 1.4 to 1, which is really well below the 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 that you'd need to see from a point guard to call him a competent point guard. So when you look at this, for me, when I look through all of this, I see a guy who can operate as a combo guard if you have another point guard on the floor with him. But if we're talking about who is the better point guard of the two, it's pretty clearly Raul Neto, who does have basically a 2 to 1 assist turnover ratio. So I know when you're watching, Burks looks better doing it, but none of the real numbers, and these aren't even advanced numbers, these are pretty much high school type statistics, would bear out the fact that he's a better net player in a team sport.
So the argument that I'll make there is, I do agree with you completely when it comes to Neto and Burks, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday with you as well. You know, Burks has a role, bench, high-volume guy, go get a bucket kind of attitude. That's not really what the Neto playing style is. But could you argue that maybe that's what Shake Milton can be? Because there was a lineup, and I want to get your thought on this. There was a lineup in the fourth quarter of Neto, Furkan, Matisse Thybulle, Tobias, and Al Horford. And I just think, in the fourth quarter, should Neto and Furkan be out there as your 1 and 2? Isn't that a spot where maybe you can utilize Shake Milton? And when we talk about the postseason, maybe Milton can play that role instead of Neto. Maybe Ben Simmons' foul trouble played a role, though, as well.
Yeah, I think that was a huge wrench in the whole works, because I think they view Plan A as Shake being the starting point guard and Ben Simmons being the backup point guard. So when you put Shake into really a sort of how much could you trust him based on the previous game, situation, and then you take Ben essentially out of the rotation. Now you start to get into some weird spots as far as who's on the floor together. And I agree with you. I think Furkan is underrated in his decision making ability on the floor. He's a pretty experienced international pro, even though he's very young. But he doesn't have a great handle. He doesn't have a great burst. So that was a problematic lineup for fourth quarter. And if you see that in the playoffs, then something really bad has happened.
All right.
But, yeah.
So a lot of other things, went on in this game last night that kind of stick out. The fact that, 43 points in the fourth quarter, the defensive side of the ball, but then Shake Milton, he has the big three-pointer there with 6 seconds to go. Which one should you be more frustrated by giving up 130 and 127 in the way the defense is playing, or should you be feeling more positive that, you had a guy like Milton bounce back and that, they're getting more growth together? Because it seems that Brett is still not comfortable with his rotations and stuff. So are you taking more positive from last night's win, or are you still kind of concerned even after a win?
I think the positives are really Joel Embiid's decisiveness out of the post. That's the big positive. But I've seen Shake play too many times. He can make that shot. If you look forward to a playoff matchup, if you play Indiana with their really ultra-aggressive guards, or you play the Boston Celtics with like a Marcus Smart, it's pretty easy to see how those kind of guards would frustrate Shake and take him out of your game plan. So those are concerns. He's got 6 games to work through those. So much can be helped though by Joel being really quickly decisive, both getting the ball and immediately attacking from the post, or getting that double team to come at him and find the open man. That can solve like a ton of problems, because then Shake becomes really valuable to you as a catch and shoot guy and a attack closeout guy. But if you're going to play the game where Shake's got the ball and he's trying to initiate something, and you're going against Marcus Smart or TJ McConnell or Victor Oladipo, there should be real concerns there.
It's pretty obvious that, when Ben Simmons on the offensive side is getting the ball by the elbow, they're running the offense through him at the elbow. And at this point, I really haven't seen that much that I love out of him at that spot. I know that it's in there and he has the ability to maybe attack the basket from there, but you see some things where it's like, Ben, come on, in that spot, you can totally utilize your skill set in a different way. So from what you have seen in the Indiana game and the game against the Spurs with Ben Simmons at the elbow, what are you not satisfied with from his work there?
I'm not satisfied with any of that stuff. Does he have the touch around the rim to really, if he's not dunking on you, really do something that is going to make you all that happy operating in that space? It's just not a situation where he's got to be moving vertically and downhill. I don't love the whole elbow thing. I think it's the place on the floor the other team is most comfortable having a guy like him, especially a non-touch guy, taking shots from. It's just a bad spot unless you're a really gifted scorer, and he's just not a gifted scorer. He's a fantastic player on both ends, but whoever decides that he should be operating out of the elbow, I'd like to be walked through that logic.
Talking about how. I think it was you that asked Joel last night about the way teams are defending him. I thought he really gave a thoughtful answer and recognized, what is going on with him, because I thought he passed the ball a little bit better out of the post last night. Tobias talked about it. But what does Joel kind of see about – because he's had 2 really good games. So what does he see about the way teams are defending him?
So here's a little tidbit about that. I appreciate that. But I was really trying to talk about defensively, the way that teams approach him, because he's a drop pick and roll. We talked about it yesterday. Drop coverage guy, and they do leave that soft underbelly. And that was honestly the question I was trying to get. Now, Joel is more comfortable talking about the ball in his hands on the offensive end, and he did have some good insight around how teams blitz him and double him in different ways. I do think last night it wasn't just the passing. It was like as soon as he had the ball, he did a little shoulder wiggle. I don't know if you guys saw a little dream shake, and then immediately went into his game. He didn't do the pound back to the basket pound figure it out thing. He grabbed the ball, wiggled, made one dribble, and attacked the basket or passed out, and that's what you want to see. The interesting thing was when he talked about Toronto not even letting him touch the ball, immediately doubling while the ball was in the air, the entry pass. That was really interesting. I like that answer. But I really want to hear from him, and I'll ask it next time, is on the defensive side, when you see a team just absolutely torching you because you're in drop pick and roll coverage, how hard is it to not hedge, to not challenge, and to just trust that your back line will have your back if you have to go out and challenge a shooter at 15 feet. Because we know he can defend out there, but something just tells me that he's either being told to drop to the rim or he's not comfortable letting anyone get behind him. So that's the next question I plan on asking. So I felt like I got half an answer, and it was a good half.
It was interesting. He gave a thoughtful answer to it. Do you think?
I think it was. To be honest, though, I'm not going to let him off the hook because I think he knew where I was going, and he wanted to talk about offense, and he kept talking until we basically ran clock. So
gotcha. Now, do you think that Brett is still testing rotations? Hasn't quite figured out what he wants to do there yet?
Yeah, I think he's trying to figure out how other teams view his players and how other teams will test his players. I think he's got a plan A, and he's in the evaluation process of seeing how viable is plan A, and does he have to come up with plan B and C. So, yeah, I think so. I think for the most part, I think he knows what he's got. I think Glenn Robinson needs to get back in this lineup because he does a thing that they really do need. So I think he's more important than we would have thought 5 months ago. But you took James Ennis off of the team, and you basically replaced that role with Glenn Robinson, and now you don't have either of them. And that corner three, rangy defender guy, I think is an important thing for them to have in the arsenal.
All right, Sixers back in action tomorrow, 4 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. They take on the Washington Wizards. We have it for you here. And, of course, we'll have more on them as they get ready for the playoffs, which begin right after the 14th is the final Sixer game, and that's when the playoffs will start. Right now they would play Boston if the playoffs were to start today. Jason Blevins covers the Sixers at Blevins NBA. You can read more at 97.3 ESPN.com. Jay Blevins, take care, man.
Thanks, guys.